My name's Lily, I'm 29, and the happiest day of my life turned into a nightmare. Standing at the altar, I discovered my fiancé's affair. It felt like betrayal was tangibly slicing through me. "I can't believe this," my sister whispered. Disbelief thick in her voice. As guests exchanged scandalized glances, the room exploded into whispers. Like a storm tearing through calm, I clutched my bouquet, hands trembling. As the reality of Daniel's betrayal crashed over me, the flowers, symbols of new beginnings, felt suddenly meaningless. A photograph revealing Daniel with another woman lay among the best man's notes, a brutal evidence of his betrayal. I couldn't tear my eyes away from it, my mind racing. "Lily, please," Daniel stammered, reaching out, desperation creasing his features. But all I felt was a coldness seeping through my bones, freezing me in place. The vaulted ceiling and stained glass felt oppressive, witnessing my humiliation. The weight of ancestral judgments pressed down like a physical force demanding my compliance. Realization hit me like a tidal wave. I had to walk down this aisle alone. My mind wrestled between disbelief and anger, trying to push through the haze. Together, yet isolated, I faced the unraveling of everything we'd built. The guide rope of my life snapped, leaving me adrift and aching, decisions swirling thickly. Determination surged through me. I could no longer be just a participant in this unfolding disaster. I had to reclaim my dignity amidst the wreckage. With a breath that carried the weight of shattered dreams, I straightened my back. I felt the piercing eyes of everyone present, yet I stood resolute. I started walking down the aisle, my feet steady on the polished floor. Each step was a claim of my newfound power, breaking away from the grip of betrayal. A collective hush fell over the congregation as my footsteps echoed in the stillness. Every eye was glued to me, expectant, uncertain what would happen next. Halfway down, I glanced back. There was Daniel, still at the altar, eyes filled with a mix of despair and regret. My resolve hardened further. Pausing for a brief moment, I felt all the love, all the moments supposedly meant forever, crumbling. Yet strength was my guiding light now. I faced forward again, every step echoing empowerment, cutting through the weight of everyone's expectations. It was like walking through layers of my past. Approaching the exit, I felt the outside air calling, a beckoning promise of freedom from this painful charade. I walked toward it with purpose. Just as I reached the doors, I hesitated, sensing a silent plea from behind. But I couldn't allow the past to re-anchor my steps. With one last look behind, I pushed open the doors. The sunlight was blinding, but it felt invigorating, promise of new beginnings unfolding. Outside, the crisp air filled my lungs, a reminder that the world was bigger than this painful moment. I felt strangely alive, even amidst heartbreak. I lingered for a moment, letting the noise of the street drown out the chaos from inside. Each sound was a reminder of life continuing. A rush of freedom surged as I stepped further from the church. I could begin piecing myself back together, away from prying eyes and whispers. Just then, a friend ran after me, breathless. "Lily, wait," they called, concerned but supportive, their presence a comforting touch. We walked side by side in silence, their quiet support grounding amidst the emotional storm still swirling inside me. We reached a quiet park where I finally unloaded my feelings, the betrayal and pain spilling out amidst the serene surroundings. Through tears and laughter, I began to see the edges of hope again, traces of laughter mixing with the tears on my cheeks. My friend gently reminded me of my strength, their words igniting a spark of resilience inside me. I was more than this wedding. I had a future. The sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, symbolizing the end of a chapter and the promise of a new dawn. We walked back to my apartment, and every step felt lighter, like shedding layers of a heavy cloak, leaving the wreckage behind. Inside my apartment, I kicked off my shoes and exhaled deeply. They poured us both a glass of wine, the simple gesture warming the chill. As I clinked glasses with my friend in a toast to resilience and new beginnings, I knew I'd find a way to move forward with grace. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the steaming mug of coffee. I felt the weight of what I discovered last night. My heart was still racing. Dave, my husband of 5 years, had been distant lately. I tried to ignore it at first, chalking it up to work stress, but something felt off. As I rifled through our shared drawer for a pen, my fingers brushed against an unfamiliar piece of paper. Curiosity got the better of me. It was a hotel booking confirmation, dated 2 weeks ago, when Dave claimed he was on a business trip. My gut twisted with betrayal. Confronting him seemed impossible at first. I practiced what I wanted to say, staring at my reflection in the bathroom mirror, trying to find the courage. Finally, I approached Dave, who was lounging on the couch, immersed in his phone. My words were shaky but direct. I demanded answers. He denied everything initially, but his eyes betrayed him. They shifted uncomfortably as he tried to spin more lies. My stomach churned. I stormed out of the living room, needing air. My heart pounded as I paced the backyard, autumn leaves crunching under my feet. Sitting on the porch steps, I dialed my best friend Lisa. As I breathed out my story, her comforting voice wrapped around me like a warm hug. Lisa was furious on my behalf. Her anger fueled my resolve to confront Dave once more. I had to know the whole truth. I walked back inside, where Dave was now pacing. He looked up, guilt etched across his face. He started to confess, each word like a dagger. His admission of an affair was like a cold slap. My mind reeled, struggling to process. Tears blurred my vision. The conversation escalated into shouting. Words flew like arrows. I couldn't contain my hurt and anger any longer. I retreated to the bedroom, slamming the door behind me. The silence inside was deafening compared to the storm of emotions in my heart. As I sat on the edge of the bed, I picked up our wedding photo. Memories flooded over me, each more painful than the last. Dave knocked gently, his voice muffled as he tried to speak through the door. I couldn't face him, not yet. I spent the night on the bed, staring at the ceiling, consumed by what-ifs and regrets. Sleep seemed impossible. The next morning, I awoke to the stillness of dawn. Reality hit like a punch. I knew what I had to do. I called my sister, Megan, who lived nearby. Her surprise turned into support as she offered me a place to stay. I needed space. Packing a suitcase felt surreal. I included essentials and left the rest. It felt like packing for a journey with no return. I left Dave a note explaining I needed time. As difficult as it was to write, it had to be done. As I stepped out, the world felt strange, as if everything had changed overnight. The first breath of fresh air felt liberating. Arriving at Megan's place, I felt a rush of gratitude. She greeted me with a hug that held all the understanding I needed. Over coffee, I shared every detail with my sister. Her listening ear and kind words started stitching my heart back together. Megan suggested therapy, something I hadn't considered. As I pondered her words, I realized there were ways to heal, slowly but surely. I called a therapist that afternoon. Just scheduling the session felt like a small victory, a step towards regaining myself. Dave texted, asking to talk. My heart skipped, but I knew I wasn't ready. I ignored the notification, focusing on myself first. In the following weeks, I started rediscovering old passions. Painting, something I hadn't done in years, began filling my days with color. Therapy helped unravel the pain and rebuild my strength. Week by week, I began to see a hopeful future beyond the heartbreak. Eventually, I reached out to Dave. We met in a park, conversation tentative but honest. This chapter was closing. I was ready for a new beginning. There I was, 26, staring in the mirror as a tired reflection looked back. My loose curls and faded jeans reflected nothing of the vibrant person I used to be. The cramped apartment felt like a cage. I paced around trying to avoid the mess that accumulated as my relationship with Brad deteriorated. His things were everywhere. Brad, my boyfriend of 3 years, was supposed to be my rock, but lately, he was a storm I couldn't weather. Everything turned into an argument, leaving me emotionally drained. I remember the time he laughed at my dream of owning a small bookstore. His dismissive chuckle cut deep. It felt like a dream slipping through my hands. That night, I lay in bed listening to the hum of distant traffic. My mind raced, thinking about a future without Brad's constant negativity. Could I really just leave everything behind? A chance encounter at the grocery store introduced me to Sarah. Her vibrant energy and genuine interest in life reminded me of what I'd lost. Sarah spoke passionately about her travels, her eyes lighting up with every story. I felt an unfamiliar spark ignite within me, a longing for adventure I had buried deep. That night, I began researching bookstore ownership. My heart raced with every click, diving into the possibilities of starting anew. Escape seemed plausible, even exciting. Brad, oblivious to my newfound determination, continued his tirades. I started saving secretly. Each dollar whispered freedom. Sarah, still in her vibrant spirit, encouraged my dreams. Her words were like sunlight piercing through clouds, giving me confidence to envision a different life. One evening, Sarah handed me an envelope, her eyes twinkling. It contained her travel guide and a small lucky charm. This unexpected support filled me with gratitude. As days turned into weeks, my preparations gained momentum. Despite Brad's increasing negativity, my hope was unwavering. I planned my escape down to the last detail. One fateful morning, I packed a suitcase filled with essentials and dreams. Every item told a story, whispering promises of what's next. After Brad left the apartment in a huff, I knew there was no turning back. My heart pounded as I picked up the suitcase, ready to start my journey. My heart raced as I piled into Sarah's car, her open smile welcoming me to my new life. I dared to hope, watching the city blur behind us. The open road held possibilities I hadn't dared dream of. We talked and laughed, my isolation peeling away the further we drove from the city. That night, we stopped at a quaint motel. My heart was a fluttering mix of fear and exhilaration, a reminder I was truly free. In the motel room, I unfolded the travel guide Sarah gave me, tracing a route with tentative fingers. This was the beginning of something beautiful. The next morning, standing by a vast field, the sunrise felt like a personal promise from the universe. I breathed in deeply, cherishing my newfound freedom. With Sarah's guidance, I started planning for a small bookstore. She believed in my dream even when I faltered. In a moment of rare silence, I realized how strange it was that I finally felt heard and respected. It was Sarah's gift to me. Unexpectedly, Brad called. His voice was a cold echo of my past life, demanding answers I refused to give. After hanging up, I felt an overwhelming sense of closure. The call was the final goodbye I didn't know I needed. Over time, I met new people who embraced my aspirations and encouraged my growth, unlike Brad's constant undermining. Months later, my bookstore opened. Staring at the sign above, I felt an electrifying mix of accomplishment and disbelief. It was finally real. Stepping inside, the scent of fresh pages was intoxicating. I could finally breathe in a place that brought me joy rather than conflict. An unexpected letter arrived from Brad, filled with apologies and regrets. But my heart had moved on to a symphony of gratitude and peace. Filing away the letter, I recognized it as another step in my journey, a past chapter now closed, sealed with understanding and forgiveness. My life wasn't just rebuilt, it was transformed. Friends, laughter, and love-filled spaces once occupied by doubt and fear. As I watched a group of friends browse my bookstore, I knew every choice had led me to this tranquility. I finally felt like myself, whole, happy, and home. I always knew my neighbor, Sam, as a quiet guy. Mid-30s, glasses, wore polo shirts even at home. But today, he seemed different during our brief greeting. Sam invited me over for coffee, which was unusual. Our interactions were limited to nods in the driveway. I sensed an underlying urgency in his voice. His house was neat, everything in place. But as we sat down, I noticed his hands trembling slightly as he set down his cup. Sam hesitated before speaking. "I'm in a bit of a situation," he finally admitted, his voice almost a whisper, eyes avoiding mine. Curiosity piqued. I leaned forward, urging him silently to continue. Sam seemed lost, grappling with something big and personal. He told me about his work issues. An unfair demotion he felt was motivated by jealousy rather than merit. He couldn't confide in anyone at work. Seeing his vulnerability, I felt compelled to help. "Maybe I can find someone to talk to at my workplace," I proposed cautiously, hoping it might cheer him up. Sam seemed relieved, a glimmer of hope returning to his tired eyes. "That would mean a lot," he shared, a tentative smile forming. Suddenly, Sam's phone buzzed with a text. His demeanor shifted from hopeful to anxious. the weight of urgency returning instantly. He apologized, saying he had to go immediately. "I'm really sorry," he muttered, rushing out the door, urgency in his stride. I sat in silence for a moment, pondering the abrupt end to our conversation. My coffee sat untouched, the room empty but heavy with thought. Days passed without any word from Sam. I started to worry. His absence was odd, considering his plea for help. I decided to check on him one evening. His curtains were drawn and front lights dimmed, hinting at solitude or avoidance. Knocking softly, I hesitated when there was no response. The night air felt thick with unanswered questions. Finally, my phone pinged with a text from Sam. "Can't talk now. Things are complicated." Frustration bubbled up within me. I couldn't help but wonder about Sam's predicament. Felt like betrayal on some part, almost as if he'd used me without intent to follow through. Almost giving up, I confided in my partner. She suggested reaching out to others who might know him better. With renewed resolve, I decided to network cautiously. Surely someone knew what was happening with Sam at work. A colleague from Sam's company finally responded, "He's caught in a big mess. Keep an eye on him." Ominous words fueling concern. Unable to contact Sam directly, I deliberated over my next steps. Inaction seemed impossible, yet forward was daunting. The next morning, I bumped into Sam at the grocery store, his eyes darting nervously. "We need to talk," he said, eyes pleading. We stepped outside, cold air bracing us. Sam confessed his situation was worse than he'd let on, legal issues piling up unexpectedly. He explained his need to resolve things discreetly. "I'm sorry I kept you in the dark," he said, sincerity mingling with desperation. With surprise, I offered my help again. He seemed hesitant but grateful. I could see his internal conflict mirrored in his hesitant acceptance. I finally connected him with someone who could provide discreet legal advice. Relief seemed to flood Sam's demeanor at the offer. As days passed, updates from Sam began to trickle in. He seemed progressively optimistic, a stark contrast to our first tense encounter. Sam finally confided that a resolution was in sight, thanks to the discreet aid. "You've been a true friend," he admitted to me, sincerity shining through. I felt a mix of relief and joy knowing I'd made a difference. Sam's confidence had returned, and for him, a fresh start seemed possible. We exchanged hopes for the future over dinner, laughter dissolving past tensions. Sam's hearty smile spoke volumes of repair and resilience. Crossing the aisle, we both learned that connections often became lifelines in crisis. It felt like a small triumph for friendship and resilience. I just found out Mark betrayed me. His deceit was a punch to the gut. His smiling face haunted me at every turn. Mark, who seemed trustworthy, was wearing his usual gray suit, looked into my eyes like nothing was wrong. I couldn't comprehend his calm demeanor. I'd always trusted him. His words used to mean everything, but they were just hollow echoes now. My heart was aching. The revelation hit me like a storm. We were sitting in the living room, and I couldn't even look at him. He continued talking as if confessing to a minor mistake. I could feel rage bubbling up inside me. The room felt stifling. The walls seemed to close in on me as his words echoed. Suddenly, the world was dizzying. I couldn't take it anymore. I stood up abruptly, ready to leave. Mark's expression changed from calm to surprised. The silent drive home was agony. Every passing mile felt heavier. I was suffocating without an escape. Home felt alien. I needed solace but found none. Familiarity was laced with betrayal. I'd wanted revenge, but paused, realizing revenge wouldn't heal. Desperation hung in the air around me. Suddenly, a surprising thought emerged. Forgiveness might be my path to peace. Could I manage it? Morning brought clarity, yet my heart was still shattered. I'd have to face him again soon. I had decided not to confront him angrily, but seek understanding. I hoped for resolve, somehow. Mark was in his office. The air was thick with tension. I entered, determined to have my say. I calmly asked why he did it, searching his face for any sign of remorse or explanation. His reason seemed weak, almost selfish. I couldn't understand how he rationalized it all. Just when I thought it couldn't get worse, he confessed it was all for a quick gain. It was clear he didn't anticipate long-term consequences, blinded by temporary benefits. I felt sorry for him. A surprising resignation washed over me. I couldn't change the past, It was time to move on. Freeing myself from anger was harder than expected, but I could feel the weight starting to lift. While I didn't find forgiveness, I found acceptance. Life needed to continue despite the hurt. I remembered what mattered most to me, my own happiness. Mark's betrayal couldn't rob me of that. Time healed slowly, days grew lighter, each one less heavy with bitterness. I started finding new joy. Small things mattered again. Life felt manageable, after all. Friends helped me through. Their laughter and presence filled the void Mark had left. Moving forward wasn't linear. Setbacks came but didn't define me. I continued onward. One day, Mark approached unexpectedly. An awkward tension hung between us, but I felt ready to face it. He wanted to apologize. I listened, letting him speak. A cathartic release followed. His apology brought closure, not forgiveness. I felt lighter, ready to embrace life unburdened by past hurts. That chapter closed, and I found peace. I realized life moves forward, continuously renewing itself. I sat on my bed, the room dimly lit by the streetlight outside, wondering how my life took such a turn. I felt utterly isolated, disconnected from my former self. The room felt empty, much like my heart. I stared at the pile of unpaid bills on the table, each envelope a testament to my growing isolation. Every call seemed to go unanswered now, friends drifting away like leaves caught in a breeze. I could hear the silence growing louder. Distancing myself from those I loved seemed the only option. I started resenting their presence as constant reminders of what I could never attain. I took a walk down the street, each step heavy with memories of laughter that no longer echoed around me. I felt like a ghost in my own life. A hopeful message popped up from an old friend, but the words felt hollow. I knew replying meant pretending I was okay when I wasn't. The laughter of others seemed cruel now, punctuating the silence I had grown accustomed to. Every smile felt like a knife twisting deeper. The isolation felt suffocating, like walls closing in. I sensed eyes on me everywhere, both judging and pitying my despair. My old journal offered no solace. Its pages echoed happier times, mocking the person I've become. I felt trapped in a past I couldn't return to. I longed for a voice to break the silence, but every call I placed went unanswered. The solitude was deafening, yet oddly comforting in its predictability. Outside, the world seemed vibrant, but inside my chest, everything felt dull and lifeless. I envied those who found joy easily. A surprise knock at the door jolted me from my thoughts. My heart raced at the unexpected intrusion. Could it be a break from the isolation? I hesitated to answer the door, fearing judgment or worse, pity. The knock came again, more insistent this time, pushing me towards a decision. Opening the door revealed my long-lost sister. Her familiar face carried a mix of concern and warmth. We stared, both unsure of what words to say first. She stepped in without hesitation, pulling me into an embrace that melted the isolation I'd felt. Her touch was familiar, breaking the emotional walls I'd built. We sat on the couch, sharing stories of old times until the tension in my chest began to thaw. Her presence brought an unexpected comfort. She shared her struggles too, a mirror to my own isolation. I realized I wasn't truly alone. We were both survivors in different ways. We decided to confront these feelings together, forging a path out of our despair. I felt a flicker of determination light up within me. Slowly, friendship returned to my life. Conversations grew easier, and the burden of isolation lifted. It felt like rediscovering lost pieces of myself. I made an effort to meet others, stepping bravely into the world I'd shut myself off from. Each shared laugh was like a new beginning. But then, my friend's cancellation text hit hard. I felt the old fears creeping back, threatening to pull me into the darkness again. I closed my eyes, took a breath, and forced myself not to spiral. I wasn't alone anymore, but it was difficult to remember that in moments like these. Using the tools my sister and I had discussed, I reached out rather than retreat. I felt the pull of isolation wane once more. The more I shared, the less isolated I felt. My heart gradually softened to the idea of belonging, this new path feeling fragile, yet promising. I spent evenings with my sister, watching shows from our childhood, reclaiming lost joy. Each memory unearthed felt like a gift, not a burden. But shadows of despair lingered. needing daily effort to push them away. I didn't imagine this journey to wellness would be so hard. I reached for my journal again, this time adding today's triumphs next to the struggles, documenting growth rather than stagnation. My sister and I, miles apart in childhood, now grew closer. Our bond felt unbreakable, each call a lifeline pulling me from the depths. I revisited places that once held sadness, determined to reclaim them. I focused not on past isolation, but the new connection I felt inside. In reaching out, I found not just my sister, but myself. The isolation began to fade as I rebuilt my life anew, moment by moment. I remember standing in front of the mirror that morning. My reflection showed a 35-year-old woman with wild brown hair, tired eyes, and a threadbare t-shirt. I felt lost, yet determined. The small kitchen felt like a battlefield. I put on a brave face as I moved around, making breakfast. I couldn't shake the overwhelming feeling of exhaustion and defeat. My partner, Mark, entered the kitchen, unaware of my inner turmoil. In his sharp suit and crisp white shirt, he seemed so put together. I envied his apparent ease. I felt invisible, like I was fading into the background of Mark's perfect life. He chatted about work, his voice a constant hum. I listened, nodding absent-mindedly. I decided to step outside for a moment, seeking solace in the cool morning air. The world felt strangely calm compared to my chaotic thoughts. Sitting on the porch steps, I stared at the leafy street ahead, trying to calm my racing mind. I realized I needed a change, but the thought terrified me. An unexpected voice broke the silence. My neighbor, Sarah. Her warm smile and gentle presence offered a brief escape from my worries. We chatted, mundane topics mostly. Sarah's simple kindness felt like a lifeline. It reminded me that sometimes change starts with small steps and unlikely allies. When Sarah left, a quiet resolve grew within me. I returned inside, a newfound determination propelling my movements. I was done feeling powerless. I sat down with a notepad at the kitchen table, scribbling plans. Ideas flowed, small goals, larger dreams. Each word I wrote felt like a step toward reclaiming my life. Mark glanced at the notepad later, an eyebrow raised. "What's all this?" he asked. I hesitated, but then decided to share my thoughts. He listened, albeit with skepticism. Mark seemed dismissive, his words patronizing. "That's ambitious," he said with a half smile that didn't reach his eyes. I felt a flicker of anger, pushing me further. I realized Mark's doubt could fuel my determination. I wouldn't let his disbelief stop me. Instead, it became a catalyst for my inner strength. During lunch, my resolve wavered slightly, doubt creeping in. But then Sarah's voice echoed in my mind, reminding me of my capability. I felt bolstered once more. Later that day, I decided to take a walk, clear my head further. As I walked, I considered the changes I wanted, career shifts, personal growth. I now had a vision. At the park, children played, and the world seemed to move happily around me. I watched, realizing I wanted that ease. I held onto that image of peace. An unexpected encounter with an old friend, Lisa, at the park surprised me. Her presence reminded me of past ambitions and how far I drifted. Lisa's enthusiasm was contagious. We laughed and reminisced. It reminded me of the ambitious person I once was before life felt heavy and daunting. Parting ways with Lisa, I felt reinvigorated. Her words lingered, echoing the potential I still had. Renewed, I headed home, my steps lighter. Back home, the quiet felt less suffocating. Instead, it was a blank canvas for planning. I sat down again with my notepad, ideas spilling forth confidently. Mark seemed bemused by my sudden vigor. He asked if I was serious about the changes. I nodded, my smile unwavering despite his doubt. Surprisingly, Mark softened, offering support if I truly wanted it. His words were unexpected, but they felt genuine. Hope began to bloom within. Evening unfolded with a quiet, comforting rhythm. Together, Mark and I sat, discussing possibilities. It felt good to have an ally after feeling so alone. As I went to bed, the fear of change seemed smaller. Hope was a stronger presence now, and I embraced it. The next morning, a new dawn felt symbolic. I got up with a purpose, ready to take on the day, ready to embrace change. During breakfast, I shared more of my ideas with Mark. His eyes lit up, matching my own excitement. This was the start of something. At work, that inner strength felt tangible. I carried myself differently, colleagues taking notice. I felt like I truly belonged, like I was finally stepping into who I was meant to be. As days turned into weeks, confidence grew. I tackled challenges with a newfound courage, each success building upon the last. Reflecting back, I realized how far I'd come. From feeling invisible to being empowered, it was a journey of finding inner strength and owning my path. I understood now that my strength had always been there. It just needed the right spark to ignite. And with that, I stepped forward into my future, unafraid. I sat alone in the dimly lit kitchen, staring at my phone, wondering why Mark hadn't called me yet. I felt anxious, and the silence was maddening. The ticking of the clock seemed louder than usual. My thoughts raced, imagining all sorts of wild scenarios. Why was he ignoring me today? I decided to call him, even against my better judgment. His voicemail took over immediately, and I sighed deeply, feeling rejected and foolish. Suddenly, the phone rang. It was Mark. I hesitated before answering, a mix of relief and anger boiling inside me. What could he possibly say? His voice sounded different, distant. He told me he was busy with work and couldn't talk much. I felt the emotional sting of his dismissive tone. I didn't want to lose him, so I tried to calmly ask why things felt off. My voice trembled slightly, heart pounding as I spoke. Mark seemed distracted, barely listening to me. It was like talking to a wall. My frustration built up, rage simmering beneath the surface. The conversation ended abruptly. He had another call. I sat there, phone in hand, stunned by the cold disconnection. I felt betrayed and alone. I decided then to pay him a visit tomorrow. I needed answers face to face, tired of being brushed aside with excuses over the phone. The next day, I was at his office, feeling slightly nervous but ready to confront him. My heartbeat was rapid as I entered the sleek lobby. I waited near the reception, observing people rushing past. My thoughts were chaotic, imagining what I'd say when I finally saw him. He seemed surprised when he saw me, but quickly regained his composure. There was something off about the way he smiled. I demanded answers directly. My voice was sharp, cutting through the superficial pleasantries he'd been hiding behind. He hesitated, studying the floor as if searching for answers there. His silence was telling, and I could sense his discomfort. Finally, he confessed. He'd been avoiding our issues because of work stress. The honesty hit me, but it wasn't enough to erase the hurt. I told him how abandoned I felt, my voice steady but filled with raw emotion. I needed him to understand the depth of my pain. The air around us was tense, both of us locked in a silent battle of emotions. I felt an urgent need for resolution. I offered him a chance to fix things. My heart hesitated, fearing rejection, but hoping that honesty would bridge the gap. He nodded, agreeing to communicate better. His promise seemed genuine, but I couldn't shake the skeptical feeling. As we parted ways, I felt a mix of relief and anxiety. Would he keep his word this time? Back home, I felt emotionally drained, yet slightly lighter. I still had doubts, but a small part of me believed things might change. Surprisingly, he called me that evening. His voice seemed softer, more attentive. I was shocked, but cautiously ready to listen. We talked openly, sharing our worries and hopes. For the first time, it felt like a real conversation. My heart warmed with tentative relief. He admitted his mistakes sincerely, something I hadn't expected. It felt like a step forward. Maybe things could mend after all. We agreed to meet more often, hoping it'd bridge the distance between us. I hung up, realizing this was a hopeful beginning. The promise echoed in my mind, lingering like a warm note. I hoped I could trust him this time, needing to believe in change. I planned a quiet dinner, hoping to share more moments of open dialogue. I wanted to see if new beginnings were truly possible. The evening arrived, and with it, a sense of anticipation. I set the table with care, blending hope with caution. Mark arrived, looking more relaxed. There was an unfamiliar ease about him, a sign that filled me with quiet optimism. As we sat together, the unspoken tension seemed to fade away. We were starting fresh, and this time, I truly hoped it'd last. I was sitting in my messy bedroom, staring at the eviction notice. My heart raced, my palms sweated as I felt my world crumbling away. Mark, my boyfriend, was late as usual. His carefree attitude made me question why I was with him. I felt cornered, angry, and alone. When Mark finally walked in, I threw the eviction notice at him. He barely gave it a glance before shrugging it off like it was nothing. In a sudden outburst, I yelled at Mark, demanding answer. His blank stare just fueled my anger further, making me shake my head in disbelief. I couldn't believe he didn't seem to care. I felt this crushing betrayal like a storm inside me. I had given him so much, yet here we were. Mark tried to reassure me with promises he never intended to keep. His smooth words couldn't mask the deceit anymore. My heart sank at his dishonesty. In the kitchen, memories flashed of the good times, but they felt empty now. I knew I had to stand up for myself and stop letting him drag me down. I decided on a whim to confront him. I couldn't keep living in denial while he ignored reality. My voice was calm, yet resolute. In the silence that followed, Mark seemed to realize I'd changed. His confusion showed as he searched for the right words, but I already knew. I decided to leave him then and there. He could rot in his empty promises. My resolve was like fire igniting inside, finally burning away doubts. As I walked away with my suitcase in hand, a sudden clarity washed over me. I could finally breathe and envision a future where I mattered. In the hallway, I felt the first sting of freedom. I knew life wasn't going to be easy, but the weight on my chest had lifted. Sarah, my close friend, was waiting outside. Her supportive smile as she waved eased my fears and reassured me that I wasn't alone anymore. I hugged Sarah tightly. Her warmth and reassurance surrounded me like a protective shield, making me feel less vulnerable. Over coffee, Sarah and I caught up on things. We laughed about old times and talked future plans, the bitterness of the past slowly fading away. I realized I could start anew, rebuild my life from scratch. With Sarah's support, any fear felt conquerable. My heart lightened at the thought. Moving back home was bittersweet. My childhood room was comforting yet strangely foreign after so many years. I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I began applying for jobs with a newfound determination. Each application felt like a step forward, away from Mark and confusion. I started reconnecting with old friends, rebuilding lost relationships. Their surprises and welcomes brought smiles and lifted my spirits. One day, Mark unexpectedly showed up to apologize. His sincerity was a change, but insecurity tugged at me. Could I forgive him? Unexpectedly, he proposed, right there in the doorway. I was dumbfounded. Words caught in my throat as the world blurred around us. I hesitated, torn between old love and mistrust. His proposal was sincere, but trust was too damaged. My mind spiraled with doubts and what-ifs. Out of nowhere, I declined. The words were sharp but honest. Mark looked crushed, but understood some wounds were too deep to heal entirely. Facing Mark's heartbreak was tough. His disappointment was palpable, yet freeing for me. He slowly nodded, accepting the reality. Leaving Mark for a second time wasn't easy, but as I closed the door behind me, I felt lighter, more confident in my choices. Sarah was there again, ready to support me. Her unwavering trust renewed my courage, reminding me that I was worthy of real happiness. We drove to the city park, letting nature and laughter heal my wounds. Surrounded by greenery, I felt my heart regaining strength. Life slowly found balance again. With each passing day, I rediscovered joy. Mark became a distant memory, overshadowed by brighter prospects. I learned resilience isn't about perfection, but persistence. Each new day brought clarity and conviction. I was moving forward at last. Embracing an uncertain future felt liberating. I walked forward, leaving the past in its place, ready to write my own story. I sat in the quiet of my bedroom, morning light filtering through the curtains. I felt uneasy, my heart heavy with betrayal and disbelief. Mark had betrayed my trust in ways that left me speechless. Our relationship crumbled with every lie I uncovered, each text like another crack in the foundation. The realization that he wasn't who I thought sunk in deep. I couldn't believe I was so blind to his deceit. It was like waking up from a dream. We used to laugh in this very kitchen. Now, the empty chairs seemed to mock my loneliness as I pondered the future. The absence was overwhelming. I missed the way he used to make me feel safe. Now, every reminder of him was like a knife in my gut, twisting deeper with each passing minute. I finally decided I'd had enough. The apartment, once shared, now felt suffocating, filled with memories that were tainted beyond repair. Confronting Mark was necessary. I met him in a busy park, where the noise felt preferable to the silence of our strained conversations. I couldn't let him think everything was fine. His attempts to dismiss me like he did everyone else would not work this time. I was resolute. The truth hit him like a wave. His face turned ashen, and eyes widened with horror as I laid out everything I'd discovered. He had no defenses left. After laying everything bare, I walked away, leaving him standing alone. It felt empowering, stepping forward, leaving the weight of his betrayal behind. Back home, the quiet was comforting rather than suffocating. I felt the tendrils of new freedom begin to curl around my heart. The future seemed less daunting. I spent the afternoon journaling, writing all my anger and disappointment down. Each word felt like a release, unfurling suppressed emotions with paper and ink. Old boxes revealed untouched dreams. I found sketches, plans I'd abandoned for his comfort. Realizing I could revive them brought a flicker of determination. Revisiting past ambitions gave me clarity. I could step back and understand where I'd lost myself, and how I could embrace the future with vigor. Contacting an old friend seemed like a bridge back to the world I'd left behind. Maybe reconnecting with him would open doors to fresh possibilities. Eric was surprised but glad. Hearing his voice brought back floods of memories and laughter. I realized true friendship doesn't fade away, even through silence. We arranged to meet for coffee, like old times. I hoped the past would blend into a new, more hopeful chapter now that I'd faced the truth. Laughing with Eric over long-forgotten stories felt cathartic. I let go of the weight I'd carried, the laughter erasing all bitterness. Leaving the cafe, the world seemed different, brighter somehow. I realized that moving forward wasn't about forgetting, but learning and growing. The days went by quietly at first, but I focused on all those dreams I'd pushed aside. Bits of inspiration seemed to come from everywhere. Unexpectedly, Mark showed up one afternoon, trying to talk. His presence was jarring, but I stood firm, my resilient heart undeterred by old wounds. His apologies were attempts to mend what had shattered. But trusting him again seemed as impossible as turning back time itself. As I listened, I realized that I didn't need his validation or promises. My path was now my own, not shared or compromised. I told him goodbye, a firm choice made. The closure was final, freeing me to grow beyond the boundaries we once shared. A sense of new beginnings swept over me as I focused on what truly mattered. No longer tethered, creativity and authenticity flowed unbound. Reaching out, I joined a local art collective. The community was warm, welcoming, and bursting with ideas I couldn't wait to explore. Collaborations bloomed effortlessly and brought me back to life. Creating felt like breathing again, my artwork reflecting renewal and revival. Surrounded by those passionate for art, I felt anchored. Mark was a distant memory, his chapter closed while mine opened wide with vibrant colors. The realization that I didn't need someone else to complete me was liberating. Emerging anew, I embraced independence with gratitude. Reflecting on the journey, gratitude replaced old grief. I knew moving forward was a gift. I'm stronger for having faced it and blossomed despite it.